Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're here with a Varus top build, and by top build I mean it's being used by the top player right now, this guy at number 1. It's literally identical to his build, except maybe this, he has overgrowth instead of bone plating, but we're gonna explain the build. Now Varus, you can see the Essence Reaver into Triforce build is very popular. It's always kind of really been kind of solid build for Varus. So you first want to start with the Gluttonous Grease, pour some AD and some Omnivamp, and then you go into the early Essence Reaver. This of course gives you a generally good stat line, as well as of course giving you more damage on your abilities when you proc the item passive. This is really good with his Q in particular for Wave Clear and Poke. And then you go into Triforce. Now Triforce gives you an amazing stat line, a little bit of health for tankiness, a little bit of AD, a little bit of attack speed, a little bit of ability haste, just a generally good stat line. And you also get the Spell Blade passive, which of course gives you more damage on your autos after you cast an ability. And then the third item onwards is where it gets a little bit more flexible. Now, in my opinion, third item after these two should always be Riftmaker. I think Riftmaker is really an essential item when it comes to this ER+TRI build. Did I say Essence Reaver? I meant Riftmaker. So Riftmaker, of course, gives you, again, another decent stat line, a little bit of health, AP, penetration, as well as ability haste. Now this, of course, gives you the Omnivamp as well as the Void Corruption passive, both of which are very useful. True damage for some extra damage onto enemies, as well as really good against both tanks and squishies. And of course also the healing, also very helpful in fights. Now the last two items are a lot more variable, but some of the good items that was found is Spear of Shojin. Now Spear of Shojin, generally not an item you take on ADCs, but turns out on Varus it's actually really good, getting that extra movement speed to just run people down, auto attack them, launch your spells, etc. Also gives you more health to make you more tanky, ability haste to make you cast your abilities faster. You can see this build actually has a lot of ability haste, like you have 20, 25, 15, 25, so a lot of ability haste with this build. You can spam your spells a lot, which is kind of the main point. And yeah, the movement speed, as I mentioned, and a lot of AD as well. The last item, Infinity Orb, just to one-shot those low HP targets a lot more easily, which does come up pretty often. And then for the runes, Face Rush for even more ability haste on the basic abilities, as well as giving yourself a movement speed boost when you cast 3 attacks. And then of course Brutal, just for the auto attack damage. Although after seeing this gameplay, I think Brutal may not be the way to go. Maybe Gathering Storm is better, because this build you don't actually auto attack that much. And then here you have Giant Slayer to counter the tanks, Alacrity for more attack speed, and of course Bone Plating for more defensive capabilities. And finally you have Flash, together with one of your usual options, Ghost, Barrier, Exhaust, Cleanse, depending what you need for the match. So with all that said, now let's move on to talking about our gameplay. Okay, so let's zoom into the gameplay portion of the video. Now, as I said, this build is literally being used by the top Varus player at the moment, and I also firmly believe this is a very strong build. So honestly, this could be like an updated complete guide as well for Varus. I think that it's between this build and the on-hit build as to which is the best, because on-hit is kind of really good when you're against like a ton of tanks, because it allows you to shred them really well, whereas this one is kind of good against like both tanks and squishies, right? Because if you really think about it, Varus W passive still allows you to do on-hit bonus health damage, and that basically means that even with this build, you can still deal with tanks, especially because you have very low ability cooldowns since you stack so much ability haste, and you have a decent amount of AD as well. You can, of course, get off your 3 autos onto a tank and then pop it with one of your abilities, and you can still deal with tanks in that way. So this build is, I would say, still pretty effective against tanks. Not as effective as the on-hit build, but this build is definitely more effective against normal non-tank champions. So there is that plus of that. So here in the game, you can see at like minute 1, Zeri missteps twice already and gets rooted by Morgana twice. Is forced to pop both Barrier and Flash, take the fruit, and Senna is forced to use heal. So this is already a huge laning advantage at level 1. We are both basically full health, and Zeri is very vulnerable to getting killed. One more misstep, she gets rooted by Morgana. She's basically dead, because we still all have all of our summoner spells. Essentially, Zeri has none, because even Senna's heal is gone, so she has no safety net anymore. She's made 2 mistakes already, and we are like smelling blood in the water, kind of waiting for an opportunity to pounce on the Zeri. Of course, what we don't want to do is we don't want to be too desperate. So here, Morgana gets caught out with the Senna root. Here you can see I'm focusing Senna because she's the one that got rooted by Morgana. I'm focusing Senna. Senna's dead. Now we can go on to Zeri, and I exhaust Zeri just for good measure. Make sure she doesn't kill my Morgana or deal too much damage to me. And she goes down as well. Now I'm pretty curious as to why Senna chose not to flash there. If she flashed my Q or like flashed away, she might have had a chance to survive, but she chooses not to flash at all. Takes the death on the forehead and gives me a reset from the passive. In case you guys don't know, when you kill things with Varus, you do get attack speed. So the reset helps me to DPS down the Zeri, and as we already know, Zeri has, you know, completely nothing she can do about the situation, and she just dies as well, going way too over aggressive for the catch on Morgana. This is a classic situation where the support baits the ADC and herself because she gets a good engage onto my support, but you can't follow up on that engage with the situation where your ADC has no summoner spells and is super vulnerable. So I mean, Zeri made a mistake as well. She shouldn't be following up on that route either. But yeah, so now Senna here gets caught again. We're going in, and unfortunately Morgana shields herself instead of me. Now if she shielded me, I could step up and ult the Senna even in the mist and probably kill her. But unfortunately we do get rooted there and we are not able to complete the kill, which is, you know, fine for the most part, but it's just a missed opportunity. But the point I wanted to make just now before we got those 2 kills was basically that as we're about to go for another kill, Zeri takes a bunch of damage. And this time we actually kill Senna instead, which is pretty funny because I was kind of trying to kill Zeri there. But we end up killing Senna instead. But the point I was about to make before we kind of crush them, as we are, you know, kind of doing right now, is that when you have a huge lane advantage, the one thing you don't want to do is to push it too hard and lose your lead. So what happens very often is, especially when you're playing champions like Draven, when you know your enemy has no summoner spells, you tend to play over aggressive, and sometimes that causes you to make a mistake by either engaging on the wrong target, finding yourself very out of position and getting ganked or something, you know, to that effect, and you end up throwing your lead, and even though you're up on summoner spells, you end up dying instead, or you trade evenly, which is really bad if you have a huge lead. Right, and by huge lead I mean you have like a summoner spell advantage, you know, things like that. So thankfully there we were able to convert our advantage into actual kills, which is definitely the main goal of what you want to do when you find yourself at that kind of advantageous position. And even junglers, sometimes when they see that their laners have no summoner spells, do know that they're likely to get engaged on, and sometimes they do roam over for a gank or a counter gank, and you know that can spell trouble as well. So definitely things to look out for in those kind of scenarios. So here, back to the laning situation. Of course, now we have a huge lead already. Roots are exchanged between the 2 supports. I chain CC the Senna, Camille comes in for a gank. Morgana completes the kill onto the Senna, and Senna is down once again. Zeri kind of stuck under tower. Barrier about to come back up in a second. In comes the Irelia for the kind of counter gank, I guess you could say. We prop phase rush, get in a couple auto attacks, get the WQ onto the Irelia, allowing the Ahri to swoop in with the R charm and then finish the kill here, and then completing another kill and reset onto the Zeri as well. We obliterate essentially the entire enemy bot side, and now we're going to focus on getting this tower. Now, objectives are about to spawn, but we are going to be able to complete this tower. Complete destroying this tower, I guess, is a better way to say it. And we pick up the rest of the minions. Now, the issue here is that Camille wants to go for the dragon, but I actually think it's better if we reset and go Herald, or just reset and come back to dragon, because here you can see we have a lot of gold unspent, right? And all of us can go back and complete items, but none of us are exactly doing that. Now, thankfully, there's no contest at the dragon, and actually at the Herald is where the enemy is doing it. Kha'Zix, the jungler, actually dies, and Yasuo actually steals the Herald, which is literally the best case scenario. I mean, we get the bot tower, we get kills on bot lane, we get the dragon, enemy jungler dies, we get the Herald as well. It literally could not go any better. The enemy team is getting their face kicked in at the moment. And here I come back to lane, insta-clear the wave using, of course, my empowered Q. And by empowered, I mean, of course, empowered with the Essence Reaver. So, Zeri is not really even able to pick up tower plates. Waiting for my Morgana to come back to lane, making sure to ward the river. And we are just pushing in the wave here. Senna now spotted, so now we're not too afraid, because I was thinking she could be camping around those bot bushes and going for a sneaky play. Turns out not to be the case. And Herald gets placed down in the mid lane. Not a lot for us to do here, because we could rotate to mid lane, but there's already 2 people there. And rotating to top lane is kind of too far away. And we can't really over push the bot lane as well, because we leave ourselves vulnerable to a Kha'Zix gank or even an Irelia roam. So we really don't have very much to do at the moment. Is kind of the issue. So here we remove the enemy control ward vision. walk together into the enemy jungle, and by together I mean me and Morgana are standing close by in case Kha'Zix is hiding in one of those bushes. Here Irelia has used her spells on the minion wave already. She knows it and she insta flashes because she knows if she gets caught by myself or Morgana CC, she's dead to rights. Fight breaks out in the enemy red buff area. Here we are focusing Irelia, we get the kill on her, get the ulti onto her. Doesn't spread to the Vladimir unfortunately, so Vladimir is running away. Now we are moving to the top lane. Alright, me and Ahri are moving to the top lane because that's the last tower with tower plate still active. 30 more seconds to pick up tower plate, so we are trying to do exactly that. Pick up the last 2 tower plates available, and we've popped Vladimir's fruit here. I try to get off the anti-heal onto him, but it doesn't quite hit. We get the plate, and now we're going for the entire tower, which will constitute another plate at the very end. There we go. And now Vladimir has no tower left to defend, so now we are backing off. But here, unfortunately, out of nowhere, Kha'Zix tries to assassinate me. I exhaust flash onto him and ult him as well, but unfortunately he does close the gap onto me with his splash and kill me, which does of course give him the shutdown. However, here you can see a 1v1 with Vladimir and Ahri under tower. Vladimir gets charmed and pretty much he's dead the moment he got charmed. I think if he dodged the charm, he might kill Ahri under tower. Speaking of killing under tower, Senna is dead with Camille completing the tower dive right there. So really action-packed game, as you guys can see. Unfortunately, I did make a mistake in my pathing. If you guys rewind the video and take a look at my death there, you will see that Kha'Zix was, I'm not sure where Kha'Zix was, but Ahri was aware that Kha'Zix might be in that bush, and she actually hugged the wall closer to us, and she could not get engaged on by the Kha'Zix because of that, whereas I was just walking in the middle of the river, and because of that, I was in the Kha'Zix engage range. Whereas if I had followed Ahri's pathing for Kha'Zix to engage on us, as Kha'Zix takes a huge death here and gives over the shutdown to me. If I follow Ahri's route there for the Kha'Zix to actually engage on us, he would have to E-flash, and if he does choose to E-flash onto me, I could then exhaust flash away from him and he could not close the gap. So if I had better pathing, I would have avoided the death there, and that's really my main takeaway from the death, and also what I want to point out to you guys, which is that with some better pathing, that death could have absolutely been avoided. Here we pick up the enemy blue buff just to deny it. We also have the Essence Reaver completion already, so with the 2 core items here, we are coming over to back up our Yasuo against this Irelia, which started off as a 1v1 but is now a 1v3, and actually a 1v4 with Ahri coming in as well. Not sure if she even got the assist there, but we are able to decimate the Irelia. And enemy bot lane are both 0-4-0, completely no KP at all. They're just getting farmed, and it's about to happen again. Senna just getting caught here. I'm not even able to get the assist on that one. We have a root down onto the Kha'Zix, and which spreads over. Sorry, onto the Zeri, which spreads over onto the Kha'Zix, and then we kill both of them. And the bot lane finally get 1 assist though, so there is that with Ahri falling. We pick up the tier 2 tower, and at this point, my team is just so far ahead. Collectively, we are, of course, like about 7-8k gold ahead. We are basically having a lead in every single lane except the jungle, where somehow, not somehow, but Kha'Zix has been pulling off a couple of good assassinations. So he has 1k gold on the Camille, which is not very surprising. Here, Irelia tries to go onto the Morgana, which is a very vulnerable target, but unfortunately for her, she didn't take into account that Morgana had stasis, and Morgana is actually able to survive because of stasis, and we are able to help her clean up the kill on Irelia. And Irelia used ult, barrier, and flash for that exchange, so she ends up basically using everything and got nothing except a death. And I think Irelia probably is tilted out of her mind at this point in time. Like, her bot lane managed to feed me and Morgana to such a degree that we are basically able to kill her very easily. We're just farming the bot lane once again, who had their bounties reset with that assist. And at this point, the game is, I won't say it's unlosable, because there is a world where, for example, we all, int in 1 by 1, or like Kha'Zix picks us off 1 by 1, or like the game stalls for so long that Zeri, Senna, Vladimir, and Irelia all scale into late game monsters. But of course that is relatively unlikely, right? So the game is in our hands, and all we gotta do is to not throw the game. 9-9-1-7, I have Riftmaker completed. I am very, very fed. And I should be looking to get a stasis soon, because my main threat now is honestly the Kha'Zix. Now, I think, I postulate that even if Irelia dies me, I actually think I probably kill her, just with how far ahead I am compared to her at this point. Of course, I'm not completely sure, so stasis again would be very helpful against Irelia, as well as the Kha'Zix, as I mentioned. here, nice catch onto Vladimir. Vladimir goes down. And here I'm just pushing in the minion wave because if we get a couple kills, we can push onto tier 2 tower. But without the minion wave, we definitely can't do that. Charm goes onto Senna. Once again, I don't get the assist. But, you know, it's completely fine. Here, I'm just a spectator to a lot of the kills here. But here, Zeri tries to ult and make a stand here. A lot of low HP bars, but Zeri does no damage. So you can see even through the shield bow, we just pop her. And she's just gone. And here, Kha'Zix's trying to make a stand as well, but also he's not really going to do anything against a group of us with minions nearby. Like, he needs isolation damage, and he's not getting that at all. So we do get inhibitor, and we basically force it down just with brute force. And now we're rotating over to mid, where there is a relatively huge wave to farm. I'm just going to quickly grab this wave before resetting. And yeah, not much the enemy team can really do at this point. I mean, of course, Kha'Zix and or Irelia is probably the biggest threat. And they do have decent farm, all things considered. Actually, it's comparable to Ahri and is more than most people on my team. So aside from myself, they are actually really well farmed, so they are still threats. As such, you can see I actually sold my Gluttonous Greaves. I picked up my armor boots and got a stasis. Now, this is hardcore countering Kha'Zix and Irelia. With armor boots, it's harder for them to assassinate me, especially for Kha'Zix, who, of course, relies quite a bit on his lethality. And also, of course, with the stasis, if they jump on me, I can always pop the stasis and pray that my team is able to back me up and chase them away, or at least trade kills, you know, things like that. So here, being very far ahead, and with Baron up, we are kind of trying to get Baron, if possible. And here I'm just checking that bush to see if anybody is there. No one is there. I'm going to walk up and ward the bush. Zeri does check the Baron and sees that we are kind of on it, but not really at the same time. We are a little bit hesitant to start Baron. Camille's backpinging us, which is the main reason why we're not committing, because if the jungle's backpinging, you never really want to commit to an objective, because if the jungler doesn't want to do it, it's a little bit difficult to do it, because, you know, the jungler has to smite, of course. So here, Irelia is super overextended, and we're trying to make a play onto her. She gets the pick onto Ahri, but it's traded back by Camille. I flash the wall because I'm in a really horrible position there, with Kha'Zix coming over. Now here, Kha'Zix, and Zeri make a mistake in my opinion, which is they use all their mobility to hop the wall, which basically means that they have no escape, right? They just use their 2 escape tools to gap close onto us when we just use our flashes to get over the wall, right? And that basically means that they're funneling themselves into us, and we of course have the damage to kill them, and that's exactly what we do. Here, Senna is not getting spared either. She's getting chased down, and Camille completes the kill. At this point, only Vladimir is alive, and it's high time to do the Baron. Our jungler is still alive. We have myself and Morgana ready to help out. Of course, with the Liandry's burn on the Baron, as well as my % health damage on the Baron, we're going to do it pretty fast. Of course, dodging the polymorph, and we're able to easily secure the Baron and quickly get off another reset. Here, we're going to get the BF sword, which is going to eventually build into the Spear of Shojin. And with this Baron, we should be able to make a pretty strong push. I mean, with our current, like, 7-8k gold lead, as well as having Baron, and now we're going to pick up the Infernal Dragon Soul as well, which is not being contested by the enemy team whatsoever. We should be able to, you know, get a decent push, and perhaps, you know, get a couple of inhibitors, maybe, and we're all pushing mid together as a 5-man unit. Enemy team cannot really do anything if we're all together. Of course, Irelia and Kha'Zix have a hard time, like, you know, in team fights, considering that they're not obscenely far ahead. In fact, Zeri's just getting engaged. Now, she just gets one shot by my ultimate. Did her shield bow even pop? I'm not even sure, but the bot lane is collectively like 0 and 17. We just brute force end the game right here. And with that, we are able to complete the game. And with that, we'll leave you guys with the stats as usual. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.